Our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by our friends at Zapper, the world's leading augmented reality platform and creative studio, with over 11 years of experience working with the world's biggest brands through Zapper Creative Studio. Zapper also has an award-winning web AR platform, ZapWorks, that lets you create your own mobile AR magic. Finally, check out their Zap Box, the most affordable mixed reality headset on the planet. Start creating AR over at zap.works or talk to them about your next AR project at zapper.com. Hey everybody, it's Charlie Fink and Ted Shulowitz of This Week in XR. It's Friday, March 17th, and as promised, we're going to do a little add-on show today where Ted and I hash over the show where we passed each other constantly like two ships in the night. I believe actually I only saw you physically for one fleeting
One time. Yes.
and I was at your panel.
Oh yeah, you went to the
Or your fireside chat.
I'm curious what you thought. But is this our first ever bonus episode, Charlie?
Just depends. I don't know whether we've ever called the additional episodes bonuses.
I think it's got terminology. Bonus
But
episode.
there just wasn't enough time this morning. There was other news and we had guests and, that one was more, we got this idea because we were filling in Roni, but we really were filling in each other.
Right. Or if it's not a bonus episode, this will be something that only people of our age will remember. Remember in the times of when sitcoms were only on, networks, right?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they would do a very special episode of the Brady Bunch, very special episode of Different Strokes, or very special episode of the Jeffersons, where it would cover even stronger thematic, or very special episode of I Love Jeannie, which is like, now what could this possibly be about?
Right, exactly.
It's a lost in time kind of thing, and nobody could ever refer to that anymore. It's a very special episode. So this is our very special episode.
So how was your South by Southwest, Ted?
It was good. I mentioned that I was going to tell what I thought was a really great story. Well, of course, our main episode was so packed. So I'll tell you this brief little story that I was actually going to write up and send to our buddy, just blanking on his name now because it's been a long day, who runs the XR stuff. Blake. Yes, our buddy Blake, and see if he wanted to put it in like next year's program of why is South by so special. So here's my story. So I was queued up to see a movie that turned out to be 2 episodes of a TV show with our buddy Eric Shamlin from Media Monks.
Yeah.
And there was an amazing thing that happened that just made me reflect even stronger as why South by Southwest is so unique compared to other film and media festivals. Because I feel, I'm sure you the same, that South by is the least pretentious, the most fun, the most sort of like physical space to do stuff, the most relaxed and unpretentious of all the festivals by far. At least that's my opinion. I love going to Sundance, but Sundance has an air of pretentiousness to it that I always feel like I don't belong there, kind of thing. So the story it's a very simple story. So we're in line. It's a big, long line. Everybody's queued up to go see this thing. And there's a woman who's maybe 3.
I'm sorry, what are you in line to see?
We were in line to see, which was great. We could talk about it too. Disney was running 2 episodes of a show that will run on Disney Plus, I guess sometime this summer. And this was their premiere of it. It's called American Born Chinese. And it's an adorable show and a really interesting kind of like evolution of the Disney stuff. I feel like maybe you feel the same way, that there's only so much Marvel narrative we can all take without like diving deeper into some really good thematics. And this show was really lovely. It was a bit kind of a combination of like John Hughes kind of stuff, a little bit of superhero action, kids in high school angst, and an Asian thematics of Asian identity. And it was really well done, exceptionally well done. And I was very excited to happen to be able to see it. So I recommend it when it comes out, in the summertime.
So you were in line.
We're in line. And a woman is 3 sort of notches down from us in the line. They give out little chits for you to go in to see if you can get a seat. And she's really kind of panicking because her phone died, right? And of course, everybody, when your phone completely dies, you lose all your connectivity to your world and your friends. So she was like nervous, and she talked to this woman in a yellow vest. And then another kid comes up, a volunteer, also in a yellow vest. And he's like, I'm going to take your phone and I got a charger. I'm going to go into the theater and I'll plug it in for you. And if it's charged enough before you get in, I'll bring it out. And if not, you can get it in the theater. And I was like, that is such a nice thing. Like it just warmed my heart that the first assistant went to the second assistant and said, can we help this woman out? And they said, sure. And, so she gave her phone and she charged up her phone. And, it was like, that's super nice. And what was interesting is there was a woman with a press badge walking up and down, clearly looking for a story about the movie or the TV show. And I said, here's your real story. You should interview this woman about her Southwest experience with her volunteers. And she wasn't at all interested in that. She was about the movie. So I said, well, someone should write this story. So even better than me writing the story, it's now on our podcast for anybody to react to. Maybe they have similar stories or things that happened during the festival this year or past.
I had breakfast with Tony Vitillo, the Scarred Ghost blogger.
Yes, sure.
And I love this guy, absolutely adore him. And one of the things we talked about was, and actually he put this in his column, which he published today, beating me on South by Southwest content. But you have FOMO, whether you're at the show or not.
Absolutely.
In fact,
so much
FOMO is part of the show.
Yes, because there's just so many things you cannot get it all in, right?
And you make a judgment in a moment about a party and it's not the right party, or you go to see a movie and you blow off a panel you really wanted to see, but the movie was great and you never would have found out about it otherwise. Right. And so it's sort of serendipity takes you along. You start out with a plan, and the plan just goes to shit because you meet people and you do things, and panels are up against each other. So speaking of panels, okay, so I went to your fireside chat with Val Vacante from Dentsu, who's always charming and very knowledgeable. I thought it was a great idea, to propose to them. So good on. Did you come up with that, or Val?
No, it was Val's idea. It was actually
very, very smart of her.
My friend Simon from Microsoft suggested that I would be a good speaker with her to kind of talk about our trajectory and some of the stuff that we worked on. But it was not.
So what did you think of it?
I thought it was fine, but it turns out a lot of people really liked kind of delving deeper into the stories and the reasons why we do things and some of the thesis. And I got a lot of really good comments after the show, and even a couple of people sent me some notes saying they really enjoyed it, that it was insightful and risk-taking, and it was good.
Well, I hope you told them to listen to the podcast, because I kind of thought it was your greatest hits.
It was a little bit of a greatest hits thing, and I did tell them at the end of the session, because you sent me a note. And
I know I sent you a reminder, but I left right at the beginning of the Q&A.
Oh no, I mentioned it. It came up on my watch, and I mentioned it.
We'll see our numbers skyrocket.
Exactly,
sure.
Just bulked up through the sky. But it was quite fun, and it's nice. It's always sort of flattering to talk about things that are kind of interesting in your life that you think might be valuable to other people. I think maybe the two things that I recall from the talk that I said very impromptu that meant something, at least to me, and seemed to mean something to the audience, is we were talking about innovation and we were talking about change, and I said, if you look at people that really, really significantly make change, the one sort of commonality, because in today's nomenclature, we could find that all of them are somewhere on the spectrum, deeply on the spectrum. And then I said, and keep in mind, it is a spectrum. So everybody here in this audience and everybody in Southwest is someplace on a spectrum, right? So it's the ones that kind of lean into who they are and their unusual characteristics that allow them to find success and take risks in their DNA. Now, I didn't actually call out Elon Musk, but I was referring to Elon Musk as someone who has changed the automotive industry, I believe, for the better, and also kind of delved into the darker side of social media for some strange reasons that I still can't quite fathom as to why he would want to do that, other than just his ego is so monstrous. But you kind of have to take the good with the bad, the yin with the yang. Steve Jobs, I think, was like that. Bill Gates was like that. Many other, Peter Thiel, for those that know Peter Thiel, very controversial figure. A guy
he had something to do with the run at Silicon Valley Bank.
But they're all on the spectrum in some fashion, right? They all have very unique DNA, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and there are other things going on there. I mean, you talk about Thiel and Elon Musk, people like Mark Zuckerberg.
Sure.
These people are so rich; they live in a different world than you and I. They have been culled from the great herd of humanity. So I mean, these guys don't, whether they knew it or not, and many of them, like Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, came from affluent families and went to Ivy League schools.
Right. But that level of focus, that level of like being able to ignore the noise and just see something that others might not see, you certainly have to have luck and good fortune. There are plenty of people that would be just as successful as those people because of where their mental minds work. But that level of like singular focus on a goal, as you know, I'm good friends with David Copperfield, magician. You met him at CES.
Yeah, you may have mentioned that.
Out with me. He's so hyper focused on his world that, like, what's interesting is he doesn't like follow sports in any way, shape, or form. We were watching the Super Bowl at his house. He's had no interest in watching the Super Bowl. He only wants to watch the commercials because he doesn't really know how football even works, which is why he's so successful at being a magician, because he's hyper focused on it, right? So I got to give these guys credit. They're amazing.
So I moderated a panel.
Yeah, that's here. And
well, I had Joanna Popper from CAA,
right,
and who is, I must have done 10 panels with Joanna. She's been on the show 3 times. Since she's become head of Metaverse at CAA. We can't get her back on the show. Right. And on the panel, and we're so close. She's great. Yep. But she is so constricted in what she can say. It really makes you look completely reckless.
Well, do you remember when we were at CES and Joanna was on that talk with our friend Aaron from Google, who also has to stay in his lane?
Oh my God.
I tried to rescue him by saying, Aaron is doing a really good job trying to make sure he doesn't get fired.
Yeah, I know.
On the other hand, I probably am doing a really good job trying to get fired in every way, shape, or form that I can. So far they won't let him get.
So we had TFM Johnny, who has been on our show, the YouTube celebrity, who broadcasts from inside of VR as an anime wolf boy. Right. And the other panelist was Samantha Gorman, the artistic director of Tender Claws. So I thought the panel was okay. People liked it. Yeah. The topic was live performance in VR. Mm-hmm. And I had an executive producer. Joanna was one of the producers of Finding Pandora X. I had a performer, and I had a producing artistic director. So I thought it was a good mix of perspectives. I don't know how many people were in there, maybe 100 or 200 at the most. Probably fewer people than were at yours, of course, because we don't have the kind of celebrity that you would now have.
They called it featured, which I felt very embarrassed by. Like, you need to
featured. I had a featured panel last year with Timu Tok and Philip Rosedale and Rafaela Camera from Epic Games, and we had a big crowd considering it was such a down year. Right. I didn't see the numbers from this year. I think this year was not going to be as big as they hoped.
Yeah,
maybe the music people will show up in force, but I just have a feeling that it's not quite back to 2019, and I don't know when it will be.
Yeah, nothing felt overly busy. The town was very comfortable to be in. The movies were very packed, though. I mean, all the screenings were full. Did you see any traditional media at all?
I think it may have something to do with the economy, because it's an expensive show to attend. Mm-hmm. Right, just the tickets, a platinum ticket's $2,000, and you got to get your butt there, and you got to pay for a hotel room or an Airbnb.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people went on the company's dime, and I don't think the company's doing that right now.
Did you get to see any traditional media content at all throughout the week, or you were all in XR all the time?
Well, because I was a judge, my time was really not entirely my own, so I had to do South by Southwest a little differently. By the way, I also was the MC for the XR pitch competition.
Oh, right. And how was that?
Venture companies. Yeah, it was interesting. We had a metaverse company that got pitched that was doing sort of, metaverse for rent, so to speak. Mm-hmm. There was a crypto company that was sort of backed by everybody in crypto, and they said they were going to do good, and it looked like a murderer's row of people who would be indicted if there were any rules.
Nice.
But and she was talking, and of course she looked so cool with a baseball hat on and everything else, and she talked a mile a minute about Web3 freeing us, And I just sat there with my hand on my wallet.
Well, crypto is in a deep resurgence right now, apparently shooting through the roof. I think it went over 27,000 today, Bitcoin, and everybody is much more confident than they were last week.
Well, I guess if your bank is failing, crypto starts to look pretty good.
A good new mattress to put your money under, right?
I guess, except 70% of the market's controlled by 10 people. So go have fun.
That's a problem.
Because they can gyrate this thing around and around and keep putting your money in their pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
So I am not. I vote not to play with the Winklevoss twins.
Yeah, that's probably pretty
who
smart.
Are among the big manipulators, along with Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy and a whole bunch of other quote unquote whales.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like a regular person should be doing with them other than losing money.
Other than losing money, yeah, or just knowing if you know how to time.
So I mean, look, if you got into crypto in 2011, maybe you're insulated a little bit, but anybody else who's a new speculator is gonna really be at their mercy. Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the recent downturn didn't have something to do with some manipulation, because
deep manipulation.
It's just too few people own too much of these currencies, and if you combine that with the lack of transparency, you end up in a pretty scary situation where you just have no way of knowing when market manipulation is taking place or when there's a genuine realignment.
Sure. Yeah, well, the reality of what that is very, very thin, right? The veneer is thin. I'll say the other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Miro shot we were talking about.
Yes.
Because we had Roman Rapak on the podcast as a guest earlier today. You didn't get to see that.
I didn't get to see it.
Did you see it last year?
I saw, what did I, no, because I wasn't there in person last year. I saw clips of it. And I thought it was very intriguing. I thought it was interesting.
This startup has a really interesting opportunity, because I think location-based XR and perhaps the primary expressions of XR in the near future may take place in public spaces, particularly around music. So what they're trying to do, having people in the audience in mixed reality, having people in VR, interacting with them and able to see the music simultaneously. I think there's something in that is very profound and very of the moment. And I know that Snap is leaning into that as well. That last year they had a lot to do with Bonnaroo and, building XR or mobile AR experiences into that, because everybody attends a conference. Everybody who attends a concert has their phone in their hand.
Right. Sure. Of course. They already have a device, right?
And I mean, they use it, how in the 80s, we would hold up lighters.
Yeah, no, the phone lighter effect is a very clever trope.
And now
it's actually a great, what, I should use that, because I talk a lot about the digital metaphors, right? The idea that email is just a metaphor for physical mail, and Amazon is a metaphor for physical shopping. But I never use it's a great image to show.
Smartphone is
the metaphor of the lighter is we just have digital lighters now. Of course we do, right? Makes total sense. That's really interesting. And it is a deep part of intrigue for me, the idea of when we get the right devices that will replace our smartphone or start to replace our smartphone. The idea of this kind of creative, artistic digital canvas that we can layer over real objects and bring into real audiences in the real world is really intriguing to me, because it is an evolution of how we use media tools today, right? You go to a big concert, of course, the bulk of people are watching the concert on a giant TV that they hang over the artist, because the artist is this big for most people. But the idea of bringing a creative lens, like you probably saw what they did with the Gorillaz a few months ago, the band.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that on the show.
It's fantastic, right? Wonderful. But still trapped in that little 6-inch screen. When we untrap it, imagine the worlds that artists and creative people will create with a device that you can't see the difference between what's real and what's not. And it's comfortable enough to wear outside and bright enough to wear outside. Those days are coming. I mean, we've got to wait a little while, but it's definitely coming. The other thing that I think was interesting, I'm curious if you even had any time to wander the trade show floor.
Oh yeah.
And here's was my favorite part about it. And I think this is a little bit of a reaction to pandemic, but also very South by, is that it's a hodgepodge. There's no organization to the booth at all. They're just like, there's an autonomous helicopter company next to like a CIA booth, and
I know the government is always well represented there. What is up with that?
I don't know.
Why South by Southwest? They're recruiting.
Yes, they're recruiting. NSA, CIA, FAA, they're all there.
They're recruiting.
Yeah. But like weird sort of conglomerates of like, here's a digital cinema company next to guys growing hemp to build buildings, next to guys selling cannabis lollipops. And it's just like, yeah, it's just fantastic. They don't care. Everybody just like it's like a flea market. Take a spot and sell your stuff.
And they have the poster show that always starts like in the middle of the week.
Right. Right.
And I love those gig posters.
Yeah,
and I saw one and took a picture of it and
sent
it to Roni, and he said, you have to buy it for me.
Yeah, I saw.
Because it was a space dude stuffed with flowers.
Right.
So that's sort of right up his freaking alley.
Roni eyes, absolutely.
And I mean, I can't believe he isn't there just to talk behind his back.
I know. I mean,
how is he not there?
So up his alley.
I think, I think that, not to talk behind Brony's back, and I doubt he'll listen to this anyway, but, we never really talk about Magic Leap. It's a little bit of a third rail.
Mm-hmm.
I love hanging out with the guy. He's, like guys I've been friends with all my life. He's so interesting and interested in so many things. Yeah. But, we've never really had a frank conversation about the end of Magic Leap, the mistakes of Magic Leap, what they could have done differently. Yeah. And I think that part of him not wanting to be at AWE in person and not wanting to be at South by Southwest in person is kind of having to, in a way, be in the real world and be at risk of owning that. Yeah. And I think the other thing is he likes to be in public, but he wants to control the situation.
Control the narrative, which is hard. Yeah.
And I think it would be so much fun for him to just connect with people on a personal level.
I think
really what he craves.
More love than he realized. Yeah.
That's what he craves, right? He really is, by sort of holding on to that CEO mentality, where you don't fraternize with the guys below deck. By hanging on to that, he's missing out on the thing that he craves the most.
Oh, that's so much fun. But I also think it may be, and I guess, now we're sort of using Roni as a lens here, so we apologize.
Yeah, we love Roni. We love Roni, and again, just out of respect, he'll talk about it when he wants to talk about it.
Right, of course. I think it's a wider thing, though, that there are definitely people that once they sort of caved up for pandemic, have found it hard to uncave themselves. Like, it's a little nerve-wracking until you do it for the first time. And even, for me and someone who just craves like I crave, the social dynamic. It's part of what I love. I think, the first what was the very first thing I did out of perceived COVID? And it was nerve-wracking. Like, is this am I still gonna have it? Can I still do this? Certainly getting up on stage, I was like super nervous. And I'm usually someone
I did that last year. I mean, I did everything but go to CES in 2022.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I've never had it.
You broke through, and you've never had it. I know, amazing.
My wife got it while she was traveling, but
that's probably once you have it once. Trust me, you don't want to get it again. It is not fun.
Yeah, no. But everybody I know has had it.
Yeah.
Every time I meet, so I feel like the girl from The Last of Us.
Right. That's right. You're that girl.
So other things that I saw at South by Southwest. So I saw this panel that my friend Nico Charles was on, and it was about head-mounted displays. And it was one of these panels where nobody says anything you don't really know. Not the only person who doesn't really know it. So everybody's sitting in the audience looking at their phone and doing other things.
Right.
So Nico says, how many people in this room think that we're going to be wearing augmented reality devices all the time in 10 years?
Oh, what was the answer?
They're like a third or 20% of the people raise their hand. And he goes, so what the fuck are you doing here?
Right. Yeah, I had a similar comment at CES.
I told him afterwards, I'm stealing that.
Yeah.
I'm totally stealing that.
Similar thing at CES a few years back. I asked a similar question. I said, who here in 10 years thinks you'll still be using a device as your daily device that has this form factor. And, I don't know, half the people raised their hands, half didn't. And I said, then why are you at CES? Like, I don't understand, like CES is all about like forward progress on things and how things are going to change. And it didn't make any sense to me. It's like, do you really think it's going to look like this? Do you remember it looked like something else 10 years ago? It's not going to look like this.
So anyway, great line from Nico.
That's good.
Such a
That's
smart
great.
guy.
My most interesting panel that I got a chance to go to, there's a guy named, his first name is Bill in real life. He goes by his handle is Worley, so Bill Hurley Worley, William Hurley, Worley for short. He runs a kind of an interactive media agency in Austin. I've known him off and on for the years. And he gave a presentation that was fascinating, that was well over an hour long, big audience, keynote sort of presentation. I noticed instantly that all of the media in his slides was created by either DALL-E or Midjourney or one of those sticks, because it has a certain look. Like you could just tell, at least I can, that it was created by a text prompt turned into art, right? They were all good. They were really lovely to look at, but they were all kind of a little neon effect and kind of like, okay, those are like, I got that shtick.
They have the look of 1,000 paintings mushed together.
All morphed together, right? So I got that part very clearly, and that was fine. But I noticed that his patter, and I've seen him talk before, and he's always very, like you and me, very natural, easy going. His patter seemed just a little stiffer than normal. So it was a little off-putting to me, but I couldn't quite figure out why. And at the end, it was a bit of a reveal, where he said, I was super nervous about this because I wasn't actually giving my normal presentation. What I did is I took every topic I wanted to talk about, plugged it into an OpenAI text prompt, and it created my pattern. And I literally read it from a kind of a hidden teleprompter, every single word, including stuff that's completely inaccurate, just to leave it as is. So you can go back, you can figure out all the stuff I said that was wrong. But nobody, at least in my perspective in the audience, kind of figured that out. It was a little sixth sense, other than it seemed a little stiffer than normal. And then he admitted it, that it was all written by an AI, every last word of it. And he held it together for a whole hour, and it was very intriguing and a really good proof point. It was really interesting, I thought.
Let's see, other stuff. Oh, Leia.
Yeah,
Leia.
you like that stuff?
Our friends from Leia have a new Lume Pad.
Yeah, it's like an iPad that's 3D without glasses.
I mean, they had a smaller one that they did 2 years ago that wasn't as good, but this thing, you really think that polycam 3D objects are like popping off the
floating
screen?
out. Yeah.
That they're, and not just a little bit.
Yeah, they come out. Right.
It feels like the screen is like coming out a good like 12 inches off of the screen.
Yeah, if the asset's created right. Yeah, because the density of these pixels is getting tighter together, so we're able to do it.
So listen to this. It'll take 2D videos from YouTube or Vimeo and turn them into 3D videos.
Right, the audio stereo it.
Yeah, it'll do the same thing with 2D pictures.
Yeah.
It's quite extraordinary. And you can, of course, take real stereoscopic pictures using the external facing cameras, which they also use for eye tracking. But it also takes these stereo pictures that really are really high quality. So, I love those guys. David Fatal, the co-founder and CEO, has been on the show. Yep. And I was just really excited to see that. And again, it was just sitting on the show floor next to some kind of driverless car design.
Right. And somebody making belts out of marijuana. It's like,
and exactly. And of course, people selling massagers and
right, exactly. Just all kinds of the Southwest flea market. Fantastic. Kind of thing. Yeah,
so I also saw a new pair of a new AR headset.
Oh, really?
That is Google Glass like. It's like $100 and something, and it's for an iPhone. And it leverages a Google and an iWatch. So an iWatch is one of your sensors when you play the game. And they have a number of experiences where you are playing inside of AR. There's like dragons and.
Oh, I missed this one. What's it called?
Holokit.
Holokit.
And Holokit. And it uses just every aspect and every API inside of an iPhone, which nobody has ever really done.
But it's like throwback to the old put your phone in the thing.
Yes.
I have seen an earlier version of this.
This is this is so good. The guy's a Stanford PhD. He's a really super smart guy.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's actually on Amazon now for like $100. And
I'm gonna get one right now after we're done. It's very cool.
Not only can two people do it, but a third person can be in spectator mode and doesn't even need the thing. Can just be in spectator mode as long as they all sync up with a QR code. They're all sharing this AR experience, and even spectators can watch the two wizards duel it out, so to speak.
I remember this. I've seen earlier versions of this that were not as refined. This looks like a wow. And I guess the only thing I see as I'm looking at the website is I want the battery pack on the back of it so it balances, because the phone's going to be heavy on the front of your face.
Yeah, the configuration they have is pretty sensitive, and I don't know that you're going to wear it for more than 10 minutes or so anyway.
Got it.
Then I saw a robot. Cannot be South by Southwest or CES
without some robots. That's true.
Without one humanoid robot.
Yeah.
And the robot's called Miroki. It's got a little face, so it's like cute, and it's got mechanical ears that respond to the sound of your voice. It rolls on a ball that's at the bottom of the robot. The robot's about 4 feet tall, and there's a ball at the bottom with a lot of ball bearings, and it weighs a ton, so the thing can stay upright. And it's $30,000. It comes out in 2 years, and it's a helper robot. It's got hands. And they're thinking like hospitals where, they have children, or even just hospitals where they need an extra pair of hands, like Miroki, go empty the bedpans, and the thing can do it. And because it's got this kind of cute, cartoony face and ears, they're thinking, oh, it's not going to be threatening to people. And they characterize it as a helper robot.
That's cool. The thing that I saw in that vein is actually from our friend Val and Dentsu. They acquired a company, and I was looking it up to see if I got the spelling right. I think it's actually called Huggly, which is a virtual hug machine. And it's essentially a vest with all these wires and kind of contraption that constrict. So they put the vest on you, and then there's another thing that basically kind of looks like bubble wrap on a mannequin. And if you hug the bubble wrap, your partner, whoever it is, a foot away or a million miles away, as long as they're connected via IoT, will feel the hug. And it is remarkable how well it works. And then, of course, for me, you extrapolate where's the emotional context. Well, you tie that to a virtual headset. And if you want to connect with someone from your life that is no longer with us, or a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, or an enemy that you want to make up with, or, I could give you any kind of story vein that you want. But the most powerful one is, if you lost your parent or your grandparent and you want to give them a hug again, you can create, just put a picture up of them in VR. Doesn't matter in VR.
Well, of course, that raises this question of, right, how do we want to record ourselves? How do we want to be remembered, not just to our kids, but to their kids?
Right.
And to their kids' right? I mean, wouldn't it be cool right now if your grandfather could talk to you, or at least had a video where he was thinking about who you might be? That would be, incredible. But I don't know.
If he gave you a hug and you felt that hug, I guarantee you the waterworks would be like completely, unbelievable.
Because, our ancestors are lost to us, the ones before photography, and even since the invention of photography, because, I have all these family pictures from the turn of the century, from the late 19th century, and nobody knows who the fucking people are.
Right. Well, that's the
writing on the back of some of the pictures, and you could read it like Joseph Fink. Who the fuck is Joseph Fink?
Well, that's the premise of the Disney movie Coco, right? Is once the last person that remembers your picture goes away, you have to go on to the next place, and it's a lovely premise. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, I mean, it's we all know on some level that that's true.
Yeah, it is true. It really is true.
Ted, it's great hanging out with you. As I said, because we missed each other so many times.
This was our catch up.
I know. Well, I think I have to come to your place and record the show with you.
We should do a hangout, and then we should play guitar together and,
exactly.
And then play golf. Oh,
So
by the way, last thing we have to talk about at Southwest, barbecue. Did you have a good barbecue experience?
I had barbecue almost every night.
Oh, every night? Oh my God, Charlie. It's unbelievable.
That was not my plan. And the truth is, Ted, I can't eat that much brisket anymore. You give me like one
Oh, yeah.
fatty, drippy piece, and I'm
Well,
pretty
you
much
got the
done.
turkey the second night.
I'm pretty much done after that.
We went to Cooper's, which is right in town, and
It's
then
right next to the JW Marriott. I mean, it's just how easy can that be?
And it's really good. It's super authentic. And one night we went to a place with my buddy Tim. We went to a place called Lambert's, which is usually always booked up. Yeah, always booked up for private parties during South by. But we just happened to go in there, and like, as long as you're out by 7:30, you can have a table.
And like, the other place everybody goes is Stubbs.
Yeah, Stubbs and Blacks and Salt Lick, and there's and they're all great. But Lambert's is a whole nother level.
Yeah, and then they had a dinner for the creators and the judges and everybody in the XR experience exhibition, and they served brisket.
And you're like, oh my God, no more brisket.
Exactly. Open bar, no, but it's brisket.
No brisket, please. That's funny. Good, yes, super good time. We recommend everybody go next year.
Go to South by Southwest.
Don't miss it. It's a really good time.
Yeah, it's you learn something. I think that's really, in a way, that I think tells the story of why you and I are not retired to Florida and playing golf, because you stop learning things.
Right.
And you stop meeting people. And to me, that's kind of what makes life worth living.
I agree.
Have a great weekend, Ted. And everybody.
Good bonus episode. Thanks, Charlie.
Cheers. Bye.